EA is clearly panicking over the Veilguard's complete and utter failure. Hundreds of millions of dollars and 10 years worth of development time flushed down the drain just for a game to be forgotten after only a few weeks. And recently we've heard Corinne Bush, the director, had left the studio and that it did not exceed their expectations. It underperformed because they wanted it to sell 3 million copies initially and it only sold 1.5 million. Plus, over its lifetime, they expected 10 million, and it's not going to come even close to that. But now we're finding out that EA has totally restructured BioWare, moving a number of developers onto other projects within EA and focusing BioWare on finishing Mass Effect. And this always seemed to be the natural path forward, that they needed to go to Mass Effect, they needed to finish this game up, and they need it to be a smashing success with how much time and money was wasted on Veilguard. Now, years ago, when we heard that Veilguard was going to be like a modern audience take on Dragon Age, we all could say, yeah, this is going to be a failure. And they said, no, 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 it will be great. You guys will love it once you finally get your hands on it. And absolutely nobody loved it, I guess, except for the mainstream media who constantly shills for these companies. But now we're finding out that they've got together an S-tier team for Mass Effect, and they are desperate for it to be a success. The executive producer going back to Mass Effect 2 is the lead. The game director is a 24-year veteran and was a lead designer on the Mass Effect trilogy, KOTOR and Neverwinter Nights 2. Derek Watts was the art director for the original Mass Effect trilogy. They have an animator going back to Mass Effect 1, so they are clearly trying to throw as many big names as possible at this project, and it's really not a shocker to see why. And I want this to come out, and I want it to be amazing. Obviously, Mass Effect Andromeda was a total flop. Basically, everybody hated that game too. And then, of course, with BioWare, you've had titles like Anthem come out and be major fails. So they are desperate for a win, and I want them to have a win. I want BioWare to go back to their glory days and be creating amazing content again, but they are a shell of the company they once were, and I really just do not have a lot of hope or faith when it comes to their titles. And while there are some people saying, oh, this is going to be really good, it just shows that EA is desperate for a win with BioWare. This is what happens to the reasonable people at BioWare. How do we save BioWare with Mass Effect? Cater to the modern audience. Weird sex stuff. I don't know, classic sci-fi elements, epic stories with meaningful player choice, and then they get kicked out the window. Yeah, unfortunately, BioWare is a company that has a lot of activists within their ranks, and maybe some of those people will get laid off. Maybe they will just say, you know what, I want to continue to have a job in this industry, so I'm going to focus on just making a really good product. But I think that that's wishful thinking at this point. Unless layoffs were announced somewhere else, glad to see them just restructure instead of layoffs. There are going to be layoffs. It's unavoidable at this point, let's be honest. So did BioWare learn its lesson, or is it going to take another L? Oh my god, I can only imagine what they've done to Mass Effect. I like the word finishing. I hope I'm wrong and it's sooner, but I think that they are planning to release on the 20th anniversary, November 20th, 2007, so the holiday season of 2027. It is still in the middle of development as far as we are aware, because they had announced it back in 2021, but it was still in the conceptual phase, and now we're only hearing about this kind of S-tier team that's working on this title. So I do think that that is probably a pretty good date, though that means that we are talking about 7 years of development, probably another couple $100 million for a game that might come out and be just as bad as Mass Effect Andromeda. It could come out and be just as bad as Veilguard, and I want to have hope and faith in BioWare, but it doesn't seem like EA has much faith in them anymore. Again, they expected Veilguard to sell upwards of 10 million copies over its life. That's not going to happen. They expected the first quarter it was out to sell 3 million copies. It sold 1.5 million copies. The only people talking about it are content creators and gamers who are totally memeing on it and using it as an example as to how you can kill a beloved franchise by pandering to the modern audience audience, so a group of people who don't actually really exist or show up to buy video games, and even people that were behind this super modern product like Corinne Bush have abandoned the studio. So I will be keeping my eye on this. Maybe some way the next Mass Effect game will come out and it will be a mega hit. It will be super successful and it will be amazing. But we are a bunch of years away, and that means a lot of opportunities for them to admit that they have completely fucked up and are out of touch with audiences. And at this point, they've basically reached rock bottom. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.